Introduction. Have you ever stopped to think about what you'd do if all of a sudden the world around you collapsed? Sounds like a movie plot, right? But it only takes a supply chain failure, a massive blackout, or a financial meltdown for things to spiral out of control. The hard truth? Most people live at the mercy of luck with no real plan for when things go south. But what if I told you there's a way to take control and protect yourself and your family, no matter what happens? If you're here, it's because you already feel that need. Maybe it's the uncertainty of the future, the fear of relying on a fragile system, or just the desire to be more self-sufficient. The prepper lifestyle isn't about paranoia. It's about strategy, intelligence, and being ahead of the curve. Whether you're just starting out or already have some experience, knowing how to prepare properly can mean the difference between barely surviving and staying in control. So where do you begin? What's truly essential? How do you avoid the rookie mistakes that cost people time, money, and security? In this guide, you'll learn step by step how to build a solid, practical, and effective survival plan. The future might be uncertain, but your preparedness doesn't have to be. Water first. If there's one thing a survivalist can't afford to overlook, it's water. It's simple. Without it, the human body shuts down before hunger even kicks in. For any beginner prepper, the first priority is securing at least a 1-month supply of potable water. That means planning for 2 to 3 liters per adult per day, not including hygiene and cooking. The easiest option, buying bottled water or gallon jugs from the store. But if you're thinking long-term and self-sufficiency, storing filtered tap water in sealed containers is a great alternative. Of course, just having water isn't enough. Any seasoned prepper knows that having a filtration and purification plan is critical in case supplies run out. Portable water filters, activated charcoal systems, and even basic boiling or purification tablets can be lifesavers. And here's a pro tip, think beyond the obvious. Have you ever considered rainwater collection? A simple tarp system can channel water into a storage tank, reducing your dependency on external sources. Now let's be real, drinking water is a top priority, but what about all the other daily needs? Bathing, washing dishes, flushing toilets, all of that requires water too. Having separate storage for non-potable water can be a game changer. In a survival scenario, every drop counts. And speaking of survival, have you thought about what's going on your plate when food starts running low? Food storage. Anyone who steps into the prepper world quickly realizes that stocking up on food isn't a luxury, it's a strategic necessity. In survivalism, the rule is simple. The more durable and nutritious the food, the better. Grains like rice and beans are staples because they can last for years when stored properly while providing vital energy and protein. Canned foods are another must-have, especially meats, veggies, and legumes. But here's the key. Only store what you actually eat. What's the point of stacking up on 20 cans of sardines if nobody in your household even likes them? Durability matters, but so does convenience. Freeze-dried meals, instant soups, and dehydrated potatoes are excellent for emergencies since they take up little space and only need hot water. Another smart strategy? Stocking up on protein sources that don't require refrigeration like beef jerky, powdered eggs, or peanut butter. But don't get too comfortable. Even the longest-lasting foods need rotation. A simple FIFO, first in, first out system ensures older items get used before newer ones. Storage makes all the difference. Dry goods should be kept in cool, dark, moisture-free environments. Vacuum-sealed bags and food-grade buckets with oxygen absorbers can extend shelf life dramatically. But here's something people often forget. What if buying food isn't an option anymore? That's where one of the most critical survivalist skills comes in, growing your own food. Essential medications. What good is water and food if a simple infection or severe pain takes you out of commission? A real survivalist understands that medicine can be just as valuable as food in a crisis. Every well-prepared prepper should have a stockpile of essential meds, including prescription drugs for chronic conditions like high blood pressure or diabetes. But that's not all. You'll also need painkillers, muscle relaxers, fever reducers, and antibiotics for when medical help isn't an option. A headache or a fever might seem minor now, but in a true emergency, they can become life-threatening. But storing meds isn't just about tossing them in a drawer and forgetting about them. You need to know how and when to use them. Keeping an ICE log of expiration dates and rotating your supply ensures you're not stuck with expired drugs when you need them most. And let's be real, finding a doctor or a pharmacy during a full-scale crisis? Not happening. Just imagine how bad things could get if a simple wound gets infected and you don't have the right antibiotics on hand. That's why every prepper should also have a well-stocked first aid kit. We're talking sterile gauze, bandages, alcohol, wipes, antiseptic, medical tape, scissors, gloves, and even suturing supplies. And here's something most people don't consider. Having the supplies is useless if you don't know how to use them. Learning basic first aid and wound care is just as important as storing supplies. But medical emergencies aren't the only risks. What happens when the power grid fails and you're left in the dark? This is just the start of the translation. Would you like me to continue translating the entire document, or do you want to make any adjustments first? Alternative energy. Picture this. You're sitting at home and out of nowhere the power goes out. No warning, no updates, just complete darkness. Your phone battery is dying, the fridge stops running, and you have no clue what's happening outside. Sounds terrifying, right? Well, for a prepared prepper, this isn't a nightmare. It's just another scenario they've already planned for. In survivalism, having alternative power sources is crucial for staying functional when the grid fails. The first step: flashlights, power banks, and rechargeable batteries. The smart move is to have multiple backup options and keep everything charged before a crisis hits. But what if the outage drags on? That's where bigger solutions come into play. Portable solar panels are a game changer, keeping radios, lights, and small devices running. Gas or diesel generators can provide more power, but require careful fuel storage. And here's something most people overlook. Candles and oil lamps can be a solid last resort, but they come with a fire hazard. In a survival scenario, one mistake can cost you everything, so staying prepared and cautious is the key. But energy isn't just about keeping the lights on. It's also about preserving food. If the power goes out for days, your fridge and freezer become useless and food starts to spoil. That's why having canned and dried goods is so important. And for those serious about self-sufficiency, investing in a solar-powered freezer can be a game changer. But let's take it a step further. What if you didn't have to rely on grocery stores at all? That's where food production comes into play. Sustainable food production. One thing that separates rookie preppers from experienced survivalists is the ability to produce food instead of just stockpiling it. If you rely 100% on grocery stores, you're vulnerable. Shortages, inflation, and supply chain failures can hit at any time. But growing your own food? That puts you in control. Even if you live in an apartment, you can start a small herb garden on a windowsill or grow leafy greens like lettuce and kale in containers. If you have a backyard, root vegetables like potatoes and carrots are an excellent way to secure nutritious, long-lasting food. Now let's talk protein. Raising chickens for eggs is one of the easiest ways to add a consistent food source to your survival setup. They don't take up much space, and a few hens can provide fresh eggs every day. For those with a little more land, rabbits are an underrated survival food. They reproduce quickly and provide lean, high-protein meat. And if you really want to go next level, raising fish in backyard tanks or setting up an aquaponic system can turn your food production into a self-sustaining ecosystem. But food production isn't just about growing. It's also about storing what you produce. Learning to dehydrate fruits and vegetables, can meat and ferment foods can extend shelf life for months or even years. A simple food dehydrator can turn apples, bananas, and tomatoes into long-lasting snacks, while salt curing and smoking meats can make sure you have protein even without refrigeration. The more self-sufficient a prepper becomes, the less reliant they are on outside systems. But there's still one problem. Even if you have food, what happens when money becomes financial preparedness? In uncertain times, cash in hand can mean the difference between handling a crisis smoothly or being completely stuck. A smart survivalist knows that if the financial system collapses, credit cards, Venmo, or bank apps won't help. That's why every prepper should have a stash of physical cash, enough to cover at least 10 to 15 days of expenses. That includes food, gas, and emergency supplies. But here's the catch. During a crisis, breaking a $100 bill might be impossible. Keeping small bills is a smarter play, and hiding cash in different places protects against theft. But what if the crisis drags on for months instead of days? Relying only on cash is risky, especially if inflation skyrockets or the currency loses value. That's why experienced preppers diversify their assets. Investing in gold and silver is one way to protect against financial instability. But there's an even smarter move: stocking up on practical, high-value trade items like tools, seeds, and survival gear. In a true economic meltdown, bartering can become more useful than money itself. Still, the best financial strategy isn't just about saving. It's about earning, even in tough times. Remote work, skilled trades, or side hustles that provide real value in a survival scenario can keep money or trade goods flowing when the economy is in freefall. But what happens when cash and assets aren't enough anymore? That's when bartering takes over, and knowing what to trade can put you at an advantage. Bartering strategies. When a crisis drags on long enough, cash loses its power. In the world of survivalism, bartering becomes the new economy, and certain items skyrocket in value. Things most people take for granted: alcohol, cigarettes, coffee, sugar, batteries, even toilet paper, can become premium trade goods. A smart prepper doesn't just store essentials for personal use, they also keep high-demand items for trade. The trick is stashing items you don't personally need, but that others will pay a premium for. But bartering isn't just about physical goods. Skills and knowledge can be just as valuable, if not more. If you know how to fix electronics, treat injuries, filter water, or even build basic structures, you'll have something to trade long after supplies run out. Think about it. What's more valuable, a stockpile of medicine or someone who knows how to use it properly? In a long-term survival situation, preppers with skills become the most powerful traders. One last tip: keep your stockpile a secret. The last thing you want is desperate people knowing you have supplies. Building a trusted network of barter partners can make trading safer and more reliable. And if things get really bad, That's when personal security becomes a top priority. Next, steps. Security and defense, we've covered water, food, energy, finances, and trade. But what happens when things get dangerous? Because let's be real, desperate people do desperate things. And if you're not prepared to defend what you've built, someone else might take it from you. That's why security is the final piece of the survival puzzle. And why personal security. If there's one thing that separates a true survivalist from the average person, it's the ability to protect what's theirs. When disaster strikes and resources become scarce, security isn't just a concern, it's a survival necessity. The first rule of any prepper: keep your stockpile a secret. Telling the wrong person that you've got months' worth of supplies could turn your home into a target. And let's be real, when someone's desperate enough to feed their family, morality goes out the window. But secrecy alone isn't enough. You need layers of defense. Stronger locks, reinforced doors, security cameras, or even fake ones, motion sensor. Lights and well-placed obstacles can make your home a much harder target. If you live in a house, fencing, thorny bushes, or even a dog can be great deterrents. The key is prevention. You don't want to fight off intruders, you want to make them think twice before even trying. A prepper doesn't wait for threats to arrive, they prepare for them in advance. But let's face it, sometimes deterrents aren't enough. If things go really bad, having self-defense tools could mean the difference between survival and being a victim. Whether it's pepper spray, tactical knives, or firearms where legal, the right tools in trained hands can keep you alive. But owning them isn't enough. You need proper training and practice to actually use them effectively. And if your home ever becomes too dangerous to defend, then you'll need a solid evacuation plan. Evacuation planning: if your home stops being safe, you need a plan to leave, fast. In survivalism, this is called a strategic bug out. And it's not as simple as just grabbing a backpack and running. A well-prepared prepper already knows exactly where they're going, whether it's a remote cabin, a family member's house, or a pre-planned safe zone. And the key to a successful evacuation? Knowing your route ahead of time. How long will it take? Are there gas stations, supply stops, or safe places to rest along the way? If you wait until chaos erupts to figure that out, you're already too late. A bug-out bag, Bob, is an absolute must-have. It should contain everything you need to survive for the first 72 hours. Water, non-perishable food, medical supplies, multi-tools, extra clothing, and self-defense items. A good prepper also carries physical maps, because let's be honest, Google Maps isn't going to help if the grid is down. The goal is mobility and self-sufficiency, allowing you to stay ahead of danger and avoid desperate, chaotic crowds. But here's a reality check. What if the roads are blocked? What if gas runs out? Having alternative transportation options like bicycles, off-road vehicles, or even small boats can be a huge advantage. And it's not just about getting out, it's about knowing where to go. If your evacuation plan hasn't been tested, it's not a plan, it's just a guess. And speaking of preparation, some numbers can completely change the way you think about survival. Survival by the numbers. In survivalism, numbers aren't just stats, they're lifelines. One of the most crucial rules every prepper should know is the rule of 3. You can survive 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. This instantly prioritizes what's important in a crisis. No oxygen? Game over. No water? Your body starts shutting down fast. No food? You've got some time, but weakness will creep in before you know it. Another critical number is how much water you actually need. An adult requires at least 2 to 3 liters of drinking water per day, and that doesn't even include cooking and hygiene. Now imagine a family of 4. That's over 120 liters needed per month, minimum. That's why a prepper's water plan isn't just about storage. It's about purification, filtration, and rainwater collection. Being prepared isn't about hoarding. It's about sustaining yourself without outside help. And when it comes to food storage, did you know that rice and beans can last up to 5 years if stored properly? This completely changes how a survivalist approaches long-term planning. Another key number: having enough cash on hand to cover at least 10 to 15 days of expenses. If digital payments fail, cash is king, but only for a short time. Those who understand how quickly money can become worthless know that real survival isn't about currency, it's about resources. But here's the real question: what will you do with all this knowledge? Final thoughts. Your next move, now that you understand the fundamentals of survivalism, the real question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to put it off, hoping disaster never comes, or are you going to start preparing today? The world can change overnight, and the ones who are ready will always have the advantage. The choice is yours. Here's something to think about. If everything stopped working tomorrow, how long could you survive? If that question makes you uneasy, that's a sign you need to take action. Start with the basics: water, food, medicine, security, and build from there. Small steps taken now can be the difference between stability and desperation when the time comes. Now tell me, which of these strategies are you already using, and what's your next move? Drop a comment and let's talk about it. And hey, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another prepper survival tip. Your preparedness journey starts today.